What's going on, everyone? You are listening to the Antonio Chabran Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Antonio Chabran, and thank you all for tuning in. We have now reached in the NBA playoffs the conference final round with representation on the Eastern side being the Knicks and Pacers, and then on the West, we have the Thunder and T-Wolves. Both series, I feel like, are going to be very different. But we are seeing, though, I'll say all three teams minus the Knicks because you don't have as old of a roster compared to the other three. You got a young guy in Anthony Edwards who is, not necessarily embracing this face of the league title, though a lot of people want him to. Thunder, you got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and that young team that Sam Presti has built there in Oklahoma City. And then you got a team in the Pacers that nobody really saw coming. Albeit though, um, at the start of the year, this calendar year, January 1st, 2025, they finished with like a first place record, like in that amount of time. I forget how many, what that record is specifically. It's like 40 something wins and 14 losses, something to that effect. Very effective, very good. They've just been on a heater since the turn of the year. Um, and look, I know Brunson is a younger player, right? He's not as young as compared to those other guys. But man, I mean, personally, I think the best story of this entire playoffs have been the New York Knicks, just because of them being a team that just hasn't won. I mean, they haven't won a championship since 1973. They haven't been to an Eastern Conference Finals since They haven't been to an Eastern Conference Finals since 2000, um, or 1999, 2000, one of the two. And so it's been a long time coming for the New York Knicks. So great for them. All four teams have been battle tested, I feel like, up to this point, especially in that second round. You can definitely say that the Pacers breezed through that first round. I say breezed kind of lightly. It was still the Milwaukee Bucks, right? You still got Giannis there. Damian Lillard, not himself, wasn't really healthy this year. He played 3 games, well, really two and a half. Um, Best game he had was 14 points. Just wasn't the same Damian Lillard we're used to. You look at the T-Wolves, obviously how they completely dismantled the Lakers in that first round and seemingly had no issue to handling as Steph Curry-less Warriors team in five. And then you also look at the Thunder; they breezed through, um, the Grizzlies in that first round and came up against not the reigning champions, but from champions from 23, the Denver Nuggets, a championship caliber team, albeit very different given that they just fired their head coach a couple of games before the playoffs even started. That's a whole other conversation in and of itself. And then you got the Knicks, obviously playing a really gritty Pistons team in that first round, winning in six. And that series against the Celtics, I thought was great. Unfortunate what happened to Jason Tatum. That really sucks. I think JT is a great player. Um, I think they would have won that fourth game regardless because at that point it was like 3 minutes and some change left in the game. Knicks were up nine. They had taken control of that game. So I think regardless of Tatum, uh, you know, rupturing his Achilles or not, they win that game, and I think they don't come back from a 3-1 deficit at that point. Um, and yeah, I mean, look, all teams have had their own trials and tribulations through this playoffs so far. Um, but they all look really, really good up until this point. I mean, I think a lot of us saw, at least in the Eastern Conference Finals, a Cavs Celtics matchup that was all but written in stone up until this last round, obviously. And from a Cavs perspective, losing, two or three really key guys, that's tough. It's unfortunate. But that's the name of the game sometimes. And again, with the Celtics, with JT, unfortunate. And then on the West, you know, I I thought if the Lakers made it to the conference finals, that was a win. Given that they had Luka, got him at the trade deadline, that was a lot to put together in a little amount of time, so people automatically written or wrote him in as potential finals favorites. I thought it was a little bit premature. Um, but I also wasn't expecting them to get knocked out of the first round either. So, you somewhere in the middle, I was expecting, like I said, if they made it to the Western Conference Finals, that was a win. I didn't think that was necessarily going to happen, though. I could have seen it, but um, I didn't see the T-Wolves there. Saw the Thunder there. And so it was a really kind of a toss-up with the Thunder, and then who are you going to pair that other team with them? So these teams are getting hot at the right time. I think that's the best thing that we can say about all four of these teams. And for the seventh straight year in a row, we are not going to have a repeat champion. Um, 2019, Raptors won, 2020 in the bubble, Lakers won, 21, Milwaukee, 22, Golden State Warriors, 23, Denver, 24, Boston, and now TBD for 2025. It's exciting. I think it's really exciting. I think all four of these teams have a really good shot for very different reasons. Um, so I'm going to really break this down uh, with the matchup, what I think are some real bright spots for each team, what other areas could be potentially exploited, um, and how the opponents can take advantage of that. So let's go to the Eastern Conference right now. Knicks and Pacers. Let's start with the Pacers first. So this is a team that, in my opinion, has the ability to put up numbers more. I think them and OKC are the two teams that can just put up points. I would give the edge to the Pacers only because I've seen through this playoff so far that there have been times where OKC kind of gets in these droughts where they just can't really seem to score. If SGA isn't putting up points, no other guy is really there to pick up the slack necessarily. You see a guy like Jalen Williams who averages like 19.6 points per game, and we'll get to him specifically when I get to the Thunder, so I don't want to say too much about that. But there have been some times where he's been very inconsistent in the postseason, and that's something that they should definitely keep an eye on, something to potentially be concerned about, especially going against the Timberwolves team that knows how to play defense. But anyways, back to the Pacers. Five players on that team that are averaging over 14 points per game. Pascal Siakam, obviously Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Andrew Nembhard, and Aaron Nesmith. Let's start with Siakam. He's averaging about 19 points per game. Honestly, where Tyrese had that little bit of a lull in the regular season, Pascal was their best player, arguably. And him, along with Turner, Miles Turner, now granted, he only shoots about, I don't know, or about four threes a game. That's not like a huge part of his game because he's big, but he's shooting big. Um, they have really high 3-point percentages. Siakam shoots about 3.4 threes per game, knocks down about 44% of his threes. Um, Miles Turner, about four threes a game, makes 45% of them. And Aaron Nesmith, who shoots at a higher clip, about 5.5, 5.6 to be specific, threes per game, is making 45%. So you have high percentage shooters here that can, in all respects, shoot you out of a gym if you're not able to keep up with them or you're not contesting. So you got a lot of guys that are able to shoot. And again, going back to Siakam here, he's a really crucial piece to this team, and I'm happy for him because when the Raptors won in 2019, that was a cool team to root for. It was a team that had some basketball history, with the Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady days, when they had those really dope Raptor jerseys in the 90s. That was it. That was all that they really could hang their hat on. Then you trade for Kawhi Leonard. Pascal's already there, and you're able to win a championship. And then when he got shipped off to the Pacers, they weren't doing too much. Obviously, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, only get knocked out by the Celtics. Um, but it's good to see Pascal playing well, and you can see that he's a really important part of this team. I mentioned Miles Turner. really solid big man. Again, he can shoot the ball. He's very, very physically imposing. He's a big dude and he can get in the paint. That's something that they got there. And you got guys like Nemhard and Neesmith that can come off the bench, shoot you out of the gym as well. Just really big, or no, they're not big, but just really physical guys that'll get up in you, and that they're just kind of like, like little bulldogs, right? They'll really, you know, not like to a Knicks extent, because that's going to be an interesting part in this series is just the physicality that New York will come with. But a guy like Andrew Nemhard can help kind of match that a little bit, in my opinion. Not so much Neesmith, but Nemhard definitely. And obviously we got Tyrese Halliburton, who leads assists in the playoffs at 9.3 assists per game. He's averaging about 17 and a half points per game. And a really crazy stat that I've been seeing. So this is a stat. It's called clutch. It's like a clutch moment stat. And what categorizes that is shots that you make um, when there's 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter and or all of like overtime. That's what's considered this clutch moment. He has taken 11 shots in these clutch moments and he's made 10 of them. He is shooting in these clutch moments field goal percentage 90.9%, which is crazy. And the top three, it's him, Jamal Murray, and Mr. Clutch Player of the Year himself, Jalen Brunson with the New York Knicks. And we'll get to him. But again, this is a team that is averaging the second most points per game so far this season, or this postseason, at 117.7 points per game, which left in the playoffs is actually the absolute best. I think before that, it was Boston, I think was the team. I can't remember. But obviously they got knocked out. So with the four remaining teams, they are the best. They are the highest scoring out of the teams remaining. What can get them is the defensive side of the ball. They are 12th out of the 16 teams that were in this postseason. They were 12th in points allowed per game at 112.2, which is out of the four that are remaining, the worst of the four. So they can be got on the defensive side of the ball. They are the worst, not just like from a numbers perspective, but just like their style of play. They definitely are the worst team left in the tournament or in the playoffs um, from a defensive perspective. Uh, but the tough part is you're going against a New York Knicks team that doesn't put up a lot of points to begin with, right? I mean, they struggled against a Pistons team to put up points. Um, Minus that last game where they shot the Celtics out of the gym and won by like 35, 40 points, albeit without Jason Tatum. Um, they hadn't looked like this offensive juggernaut at all. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how these two teams, in terms of their play styles, compete against one another. And look, the thing that you got to give the Pacers too is they can put the ball through the hoop. They are the highest shooting percentage team field goal wise and 3-point percentage wise, 50.1% from the field, 40.1% from three. So, they're not having any issue putting up points and getting that ball through the hoop. But on the flip side, you're going against the Knicks team that will contest those shots. And so let's get over to the Knicks now. Obviously, you got Jalen Brunson. He's the one guy you got to start with. At 28.8 points per game, he's averaging in the playoffs. And three other guys that are averaging 15 points or at least 15 points or higher in the playoffs. Obviously, like I said, we've got Jalen Brunson here. And he was the third guy on that list in the clutch moments. But the thing is, he is at 53.3%, but he is 16 for 30. So more moments because the offense runs through him. He is a guy that Tom Thibodeau is just spamming Jalen through the entire game, especially when the fourth quarter comes around. That's where he comes alive, and that's what every Knicks fan just thrives for. Thrives for. They're just like, get us through the fourth quarter. Ball's in Jalen Brunson's hands. We got this. And it's been a recipe that's been able to work so far because here they are in the Eastern Conference Finals. Aside from Jalen Brunson, who is an absolute beast, you got Karl Anthony Towns averaging about 20 points per game. He has 11.3 rebounds he's averaging, which is the highest average of rebounds that are left in the playoffs. OG Anunoby averaging 15.8, basically 16 points per game. And Mikal Bridges, 15.4 points per game. That was the big acquisition that they got in this past offseason. They gave up like 4 or 5 first rounders. Um, to get him from Phoenix, and it's paid dividends. He has had huge defensive stops, especially in this last round against the Celtics to win those games. I mean, he's been on one. And again, this Knicks defense has what's gotten them to this point. Yes, it has been those comebacks. It has been because look, you can get the stops, but you got to be able to score on the other end, and they've been able to do that, especially when they've made these runs. Um, more specifically, in those Celtics wins, especially those first two when they were in Boston, coming down from 2 20-point deficits in the second half on the road. I mean that's not very common. And I know it's easier to say, like, especially in this modern NBA with how the game is played, that 20-point deficits don't hold the same amount of value like they used to like 10, 15 years ago. Like if you were down by 20 in the second half, especially going into the fourth quarter, I was a wrap. Can't really say that nowadays, but still. To do that in the playoffs against a defensive minded team in Boston, albeit maybe not as much as with Ime Udoka, still a very defensive imposing team, and they were able to get that done, and that says a lot. So again, I mentioned this when going over with the Pacers points. They average 106.8 points per game, which is the lowest of the 4 teams left in this playoffs. But they only allow 105.9 points per game. So this is going to come down, in my opinion, to a few things. One, it's going to be the Knicks needing to be able to contest those shots against the Pacers and how the Pacers are going to be able to adjust to that. They are a team that goes up and down the floor, and the Knicks aren't really that big explosive team. They like to take time off the clock. They like to slow the game down, and that's just and play bully ball. They get up in you, guys like Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges. Those are guys, great defenders, but they're dogs, man. Like they will get up in you. And the Pacers don't carry that type of energy necessarily. So you're going against this really hyper athletic, fast team that loves to shoot the ball, that loves to put points up and just kind of outrun you. And then you got a Knicks team that's a more rugged, defensive-minded team that just wants to grind you down over and over again. Two very different mindsets and philosophies with these two teams just now going at it. So I'm really excited about this series. I think it's going to go 7 games. I'm going to pick the Knicks in seven. Um, it's a toss-up though. It really is. I think this is a series that's going to come down. No, it's cliche. And you can say that about um any playoff game, but it's going to come down to moments, man. It really is. It's going to come down to if there's like a stalemate certain time of the game, third quarter, fourth quarter, no one can get a bucket. Who's going to be the first one to do so? And then who's going to get stops? Or who's going to be able to make buckets in moments where you're tired and it like nothing seems to be, it's like there's a lid on the hoop and no one can get a basket. Who's going to be that team to persevere? I think it's going to be great. But like I said, I will pick the Knicks in seven there. So let's move over to the Western Conference Finals now with the Thunder and T-Wolves. So, I mean, the two players to look at here are SGA and Anthony Edwards. SGA, who I think is going to win NBA regular season MVP. I want to highlight regular season because people were talking about how that Denver and Thunder series, oh, Jokic and SGA, is that going to be like a pick 'em? Like, Are they going to announce the winner after that? Like that series shouldn't affect who wins. It's a regular season award. I don't understand why people act like it's not. It is. Now, should it or should it not is a different conversation. We won't have that. But my thing is, we all know what it is. Why are we acting like it isn't? Should it though? Different combo. We can have that another day. Um, for the Thunder here, obviously SGA is a big person to look at. He's averaging 29 points per game. He is just he's on one. He's been great so far. He hasn't been like crazy. He's not he's meeting his average like he has throughout the season, which I mean is an MVP caliber player. So you'll take that. You haven't seen a dip. You look at a guy like Jalen Williams, and I mentioned him a little bit during that Pacers um, breakdown there, averaging 19.6 points per game, but he's been inconsistent. These last four games against Denver, 10 points, 18 points, 6 points, and then 24 points, and obviously in that blowout in game seven. That inconsistency isn't going to do it. It's just not. You need to have a reliable second score, second option in these playoffs. With the T-Wolves, obviously Anthony Edwards is your guy, but then you also got a great second option in Julius Randle, who's been absolutely balling out this postseason, which good for him because that was a big gripe against him when he was with the Knicks, is that he just disappeared in the playoffs. So good for Julius Randle, but a solid second option there. Obviously, with the Pacers, you got like three. You got Pascal Siakam, you got Tyrese Halliburton, you got Miles Turner, Nembhard, Neesmith. I mean, you got options there. Look at the Knicks, Jalen Brunson. It could be OG Anunoby. It could be Mikal Bridges. It could be Cat. So, but when it comes to the Thunder, there's a little bit of inconsistency with that second option, and there shouldn't be, but that's the reality of the situation. So Jalen Williams' consistency is going to be a big key in this matchup, without a doubt. You got Chet Holmgren averaging about 16 points per game, close to 10 rebounds a game. Look, 16 and 10, you'll take that. He's consistently good, right? He plays his role. But I personally don't see him taking another notch above that in this playoff so far, but you don't necessarily need that if SGA is able to put up numbers and Jalen Williams is consistent. They got great defenders, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, who has been an absolute godsend for them. Getting him from Chicago, that guy knows how to defend. Hartenstein was a great signing for them as well, giving them about 10 points per game, close to 9 rebounds a game. So you got two bigs averaging 16 and 10 and 10 and 9. I mean, between the two of them, you get close to 20 rebounds just between those two guys. So, you'll take that. But again, it's important with the consistency of these players to be able to put up points and to be able to perform. And I mean, a criticism with this Thunder team coming into the postseason was like, are they ready? Are they battle tested enough? Because they were the number one seed last season and they got absolutely rocked by the Mavs. And my thing is, I feel like that series against Denver this past round was that battle test that they needed. Because look, albeit, like I said, coaching changed towards the end of the year. Jamal Murray was kind of there, but also he was sick or he was injured. There was just stuff going on with him. There's inconsistency with him. And Jokic, they just, he was good, but he didn't have like a vintage Joker game like that we're typically used to seeing. Aaron Gordon was hurt that last game with a hamstring. Um, Michael Porter Jr. played horribly. He did not have a good postseason at all. Maybe getting shipped off after this season, but that's to be determined. So but again, Denver, if they made it past that round, you'd have a great point for them to make it to the finals, beating the T-Wolves. in this conference final if they made it past the Thunder in the second round, but obviously that didn't happen. So I feel like they got their test there. And I feel like that got them ready for this series, absolutely. But I know they're tired. I know they're tired. And I know the T-Wolves are rested because they took care of the Warriors, albeit without Steph Curry, in 5 games. They're feeling themselves. But um, the Thunder also know how to put the ball in the hoop, without a doubt. They're averaging 117.1 points per game, which is right behind the Pacers. And they're only allowing 104.2 points per game, which is the second best with the teams left in this playoffs, right behind the Minnesota Timberwolves, who we will get into now. Look, I said Anthony Edwards, he's a dog, averaging 26 and a half points per game. Julius Randle, about 24 points per game. Jaden McDaniels, about 15 and a half points per game. You got Naz Reid, who I think is going to be due to have like a 20-point game here soon. He's only averaging 11 points per game. Reigning sixth man of the year. Now, obviously, not from last year because Peyton Pritchard won this year. Last year was Naz Reid. You know what I meant. And you got a guy like Rudy Gobert too, who's in the paint, averaging close to 10 rebounds a game. So, I mean, they're a squad. They're an absolute squad, only allowing 101.1 points per game. Now, could that be skewed a little bit because they played against a really anemic version of the Golden State Warriors? Potentially. But again, you watch those games and you're like, they held it down. So look, my thing is I understand certain circumstances happen in the playoffs, but you got to make the best of it because I mean, I always feel bad for teams that come out of series with wins, but it's because a player on the other team got hurt. Because if you win, people put a little asterisk next to it. But if you lose, people are like, oh, how did you lose? You know what I mean? So uh, it happens in sports. Not this isn't just a basketball specific issue. But again, they won. They should have won in that circumstance, and they took care of business in 5. Gentlemen swept them. Absolutely. Um, they're averaging about 108.2 points per game scoring, So again, this is kind of a similar to the Knicks where they don't put up crazy points, but they also know how to defend. I think Anthony Edwards, is becoming, if not one of the best two-way players in the entire league. He's become a much better defender this season. You got a guy like Jaden McDaniels as well, Alexander Walker, who was Shea's. I think they're cousins, right? SGA and um, Nikhil Alexander Walker. I'm pretty sure they're cousins. I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere. First cousins, second cousins, I don't know, but they're related somehow. So that's going to be interesting. You got another kind of scrappy player in Dante DiVincenzo as well. Um, so I can see this game as well going 7. I do. I see this game more so actually. I see the Pacers and Knicks series more so going 7 games than this one. Personally, I could see this going 6 games in favor of Minnesota. Um, I just I don't know. I feel like they got more experienced players. You got a guy like Julius Randle. You got a guy I didn't even bring up Mike Conley, who's the heartbeat of this team. Guys, yeah, you got Conley, you got Randle, Gobert. You got guys that have been there and done that. No uh no championship guys on this team, but a lot of playoff experience. Then you go over to the Thunder side. I mean, you got a bunch of young guys who albeit I just said that they were battle tested in this past round, but that's one round. So I feel like though both teams are going to put up a great fight, 100%. I'm going to give this to the T-Wolves to win in 7. Picking the Knicks in 7, I'm picking the T-Wolves in 7. I think this is going to be in off the charts conference finals, both East and West. I think it's going to be great, and I think we're going to have a Knicks and T-Wolves finals. That sounds so weird. That's that, and there's just so many little like underrated underlying stories here. I mean, the trades that these two teams made with each other in the offseason. T-Wolves traded Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks. Knicks traded over Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, and even in this Pacers and Knicks series coming up, Obi Toppin, who was with the Knicks, he was a Knick his entire career, up until a few seasons, like 1 or 2 seasons ago, he got traded from the Knicks to the Pacers. So, it's interesting, man. Those players kind of they hold grudges. And you can't blame them. I mean, I'd feel a type of way if a team shipped me off because they thought I wasn't the piece to help them win. Absolutely. So I think it's going to be great. It's going to be great. I think the T-Wolves and Thunder have already started playing. Obviously, I haven't watched it at all, but it's around a little after 9 p.m. on Tuesday. So I think it's gonna be good. Great rounds. 100%. So thank you all for tuning in. I want to keep trying to be semi-consistent with the NBA playoffs going on right now. There's a bunch of other topics too that I will get to. Maybe not as much in real time, but I still think it's just good to kind of share my opinion on some of these things. I won't say what yet, uh, but you probably know. I'll just say this: Angela Reese, Caitlin Clark, interesting conversations going on there. Um, and just in sports media, off of that topic with RG3 and Ryan Clark, guys, what are we doing? Anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. Um, yeah, reiterating, T-Wolves in seven, Knicks in seven. We'll see what happens. Um, and yeah, like I said, thank you all for listening. And I'll catch you all next time. Peace.